The cold white lights of the interrogation room made everything look dead and clean. HFY sat in the metal chair with his forearms chained to the table. His bug-like eyes moved back and forth as he looked at the three beings sitting across from him. The smell of fear came from his body even though he tried to hide it. Admiral Vorthak was the biggest one in the room. His gray skin had marks from many old battles and his 6 tentacles moved slowly, while he read the files about what happened to the Kethmaran fleet. Next to him sat Dr. Yella, a small green creature with huge black eyes that never seemed to blink. She held a recording device that would save every word HFY said. Behind the one-way glass, Captain Lisa Grant watched everything happen. She was the only human in the whole Galactic Council building, and she knew that made some aliens nervous. Her brown hair was pulled back tight and her blue uniform was clean and pressed. She had been waiting for this day for 3 months. The door opened and another human walked in. Commander Jack Stone nodded at Lisa through the glass before taking his seat at the interrogation table. The aliens had asked for 2 humans to be present during the questioning. They wanted to understand what had really happened at Earth's HFY. Looked at Jack with something that might have been terror. His mandibles clicked together, making a sound like breaking sticks. Admiral Vorthak leaned forward and spoke in the common galactic language. "State your name and rank for the record." "I am Officer HFY of the 3rd Kethmaran Battle Fleet." The alien's voice was high and scratchy like old paper. "I was navigation commander on the ship called Death's Wing." Dr. Yella pressed a button on her device. "Tell us about the mission to the planet you call Earth." HFY was quiet for a long time. His breathing made a wheezing sound and small drops of clear liquid fell from his eyes. Lisa had seen aliens cry before, but this looked different. This looked like someone who had seen things that broke his mind. "It was supposed to be easy," HFY finally said. "The planet was listed as a Class 7 civilization. They had barely left their own world. Their technology was primitive. Their weapons were chemical-based. We thought it would take maybe 10 cycles to make them surrender." Jack Stone wrote notes on a tablet. "How many ships did you bring?" 300 battle cruisers. 500 support vessels. 2 million soldiers. HFY's mandibles clicked faster. "It should have been enough to conquer 50 worlds like Earth." Admiral Vorthak looked at the files again. Only 12 Kethmaran ships had made it back to their home system. All of them were damaged. Most of the crews were either dead or had lost their minds like HFY seemed to have done. "Tell us about first contact." Dr. Yella said softly. HFY closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were full of that clear liquid. "We sent the standard message. Surrender or be destroyed. We gave them 1 full cycle to respond. This is the way it has always been done. Every species understands this choice." What was their response? A human named General Jake Morrison sent back a message. It was only 4 words long. HFY paused and looked directly at Jack Stone. "Come and take it." Lisa felt a smile want to appear on her face, but she kept it hidden. That sounded like something humans would say. "We thought it was just bravado," HFY continued. "Young species always try to sound brave at first. We prepared to show them our power so they would understand and give up quickly." "What did you do next?" Admiral Vorthak asked. "We sent 50 ships to destroy some of their satellites. This usually makes primitive species very afraid. We destroyed maybe 20 of their communication devices and waited for them to beg for mercy." Jack Stone stopped writing. "But they didn't." "No. Instead, they attacked us." The room became very quiet. Dr. Yella's big eyes seemed to get even bigger. In all the records of Kethmaran expansion, no primitive species had ever attacked during the demonstration phase. Their ships were tiny, made of metal and burning chemicals for fuel. Our ships were 10 times bigger and had plasma weapons and force shields. Should have been like adults fighting children. HFY stood up as much as his chains would let him. His voice got louder and more scratchy. "But they didn't fight like children. 2 of their pilots flew their ships directly into our cruisers. They didn't try to escape or surrender. They just crashed into us on purpose. The explosions damaged our hulls and killed dozens of our crew." Lisa watched through the glass as the alien began to shake. She had read the reports, but hearing it from someone who was there made it feel more real. "The pilots who did this," Jack Stone said. "Do you remember their names? Alex Rivera and Danny Walsh." "We found the recordings from their ships later. They were laughing when they died." Laughing and singing some kind of human war song. Admiral Vorthak's tentacles stopped moving. "They were laughing. Yes. They talked to each other right before impact. Rivera said, "See you in hell, Danny," and Walsh said, "Save me a cold beer, Alex," and then they both laughed and crashed into our ships. The silence in the room was heavy. Dr. Yella looked at her notes and then at the two humans. "This is when you decided to retreat," she said. Zexai made a sound that might have been bitter laughter. "We thought they were crazy. Just two insane pilots. We pulled back to plan a better attack, but that wasn't the end. No, that was when we realized we had made a terrible mistake. While we were planning our next move, the humans were doing something we had never seen before. They were learning." Jack Stone looked up from his tablet. "Learning what? Everything. Somehow they had captured pieces of our destroyed ships. Within 2 cycles they had built copies of our plasma weapons. A human scientist named Dr. Susan Blake had figured out how our technology worked, just by looking at the broken parts. Admiral Vorthak's skin changed to a darker gray color. That's impossible. Keth-Moran plasma technology took us 300 years to develop, I know," Zexai said quietly. "But they did it anyway. When our scouts went back to check on Earth, they found the humans testing weapons that looked exactly like ours. They had even made them better somehow." Lisa felt pride swell in her chest. Humans had always been good at taking things apart and putting them back together in new ways. "This is when your fleet decided on full invasion?" Dr. Yella asked. Zexai nodded slowly. "Commander Thakmor decided the humans were too dangerous to leave alive. He ordered the entire fleet to Earth with orders to destroy everything that moved." The alien looked directly at Jack Stone again. "We thought we were going to win a war. We had no idea we were about to learn what war really means." Zexai's claws scratched against the metal table as he continued his story. The sound made Dr. Yella's ears fold back against her head. Admiral Vorthak kept very still, but his tentacles were changing colors, which meant he was getting worried. "Commander Thakmor brought the whole fleet to Earth," Zexai said. His voice was getting weaker, like talking about these things was making him tired. "We came out of hyperspace in perfect formation. 800 ships surrounding their little blue planet." Jack Stone looked up from his notes. "What was your plan?" "Standard orbital bombardment. We would destroy their major cities first to break their spirit. Then we would land troops and take control of the survivors. It always works this way." Through the glass, Lisa could see that Zexai was starting to shake again. Whatever happened next had clearly left deep scars in his mind. "We began by targeting their largest population centers, places called New York and London and Tokyo. Our plasma cannons could level entire city blocks with one shot. But something went wrong," Admiral Vorthak said. "Yes. The humans had been busy while we were gathering our forces. When our first plasma bolts hit the cities, they bounced off some kind of energy shields. The humans had built defensive systems using our own technology." Dr. Yella made a note on her device. "How long had passed since your first contact?" 15 cycles. In 15 cycles, they had not only copied our weapons, but built planetary defense systems. It took the Keth-Moran Empire 200 cycles to develop shield technology. Jack Stone wrote something down. "What did you do then?" "Commander Thakmor ordered concentrated fire on one city to overwhelm their defenses. We focused 300 ships on the place called Los Angeles. The shields held for maybe 10 minutes before they failed." Zexai closed his eyes and was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. "We thought we had won. The city was burning and we could see the humans running in panic. Commander Thakmor opened communications to demand their surrender. And Admiral Vorthak prompted," a human woman answered. Her name was General Lisa Rodriguez. She was standing in the ruins of her command center with fires burning behind her. Her uniform was torn and there was blood on her face. "What did she say?" She looked directly at the camera and smiled. Then she said, "Is that all you got?" and cut the transmission. The room was silent. Dr. Yella's big eyes were wide with shock. Even aliens who had never met humans knew that species usually begged for mercy when their cities were destroyed. "That's when we knew something was very wrong," Zexai continued. "But it got worse. Much worse. The humans started attacking our fleet." "With what weapons?" Jack Stone asked. "That's what made it so terrible. They used everything. Ships and missiles and weapons we had never seen before. But the worst part was how they used them." Zexai stood up and began pacing as much as his chains would allow. His movements were jerky and nervous like a broken machine. "They sent their military ships at us first. These were bigger than the fighters we had seen before, but still tiny compared to our cruisers. We destroyed maybe 50 of them in the first few minutes, so you were winning." "No. We thought we were winning, but we weren't. Those 50 ships were just a distraction. While we were busy shooting at them, another group of human ships attacked us from behind. Lisa leaned closer to the glass. She wanted to hear every detail of how humans had fought back against impossible odds. The second group was led by a pilot named Captain Danny Rodriguez. He brought 30 ships around one of their moons and hit our rear formations before we knew they were there. Standard flanking tactics, Admiral Vorthak noted. But that wasn't all. While Captain Rodriguez was attacking from behind, more human ships appeared from the other side. And from above. And from below. They had somehow surrounded our entire fleet without us seeing them move. Dr. Yella looked confused. How is that possible? They used their moon and their planet to hide behind. They moved their ships in small groups when we weren't looking. While we were focused on the big battle, they were setting a trap. Jack Stone smiled just a little bit. How many ships did they have? Maybe 200. Against our 800. But they didn't fight like any enemy we had ever faced before. When we destroyed one of their ships, the others didn't retreat or panic. They got angry. Zexhi's mandibles were clicking very fast now. The sound filled the room like an old engine that was about to break. A human pilot named Captain Mike Torres had his ship badly damaged. His engines were failing and his weapons were gone. By all military logic, he should have withdrawn from battle. But he didn't, no. Instead, he flew straight at our flagship. Commander Thakmore was laughing because he thought the human had lost his mind. Then Captain Torres did something we had never seen before. The alien stopped pacing and looked directly at the one-way glass. Lisa felt like he was looking right at her, even though she knew he couldn't see through the mirror. Captain Torres ejected from his ship, but he programmed it to continue flying at us. Then he put on some kind of spacesuit and flew alongside his empty ship. When the ship hit our shields, Captain Torres was ready. Ready for what? Admiral Vorthak asked. The impact damaged our shields just like he knew it would. In that moment, when our defenses were weak, Captain Torres flew through the gap. He had some kind of explosive device with him. Dr. Yella's ears were flat against her head now. He flew into your ship. Yes, one human with a bomb took out our primary command center. Commander Thakmore and his entire staff were killed instantly. The flagship lost navigation and communications. The room was very quiet except for the sound of Zexhi's breathing. Lisa could see that telling this story was causing him real pain. But she also felt proud of Captain Torres and the other humans who had fought so bravely. That should have ended the battle. Jack Stone said it should have. With the flagship destroyed and the commander dead, most species would have surrendered or retreated, but the humans kept fighting. What happened next? A pilot named Colonel Kate Williams took command of the human forces. She spoke to all the human ships at once. Her message was very simple. She said, "Now we make them pay for Los Angeles." Zexhi sat back down heavily. His chains rattled as he moved. The humans changed their tactics completely. Instead of trying to destroy our ships, they started boarding them. Admiral Vorthak's tentacles went completely still. Boarding? Small groups of human soldiers would attach themselves to our hulls and cut their way inside. Once they were in our ships, they would fight room by room until they reached critical systems. How many humans? Sometimes just 5 or 6. But they moved through our ships like they had been built for close combat. They knew exactly where to go and what to destroy. Dr. Yella looked at her notes. How did they know your ship layouts? That's what made it so frightening. They had studied the pieces of our ships that were destroyed in the first attack. They knew where our life support was located. They knew where our weapons control centers were. They knew everything. Jack Stone was writing very fast now. Did any of your boarding parties succeed? A few? But every time we took back one of our ships, the humans would do something we didn't expect. A human engineer named Ryan Clark had modified some of our own shuttles to work for humans. They were using our technology against us, and this continued for 3 full cycles. The humans never stopped attacking. Even when they were losing, they kept coming. Even when their ships were destroyed, they would keep fighting until the very end. Zexhi looked around the room at all the faces watching him. By the 3rd cycle, we had lost over 300 ships. The humans had lost almost all of theirs, but they were still fighting with whatever they had left. Some of them were using civilian ships loaded with explosives. When did you decide to retreat? When we realized the humans weren't trying to win the battle. They were trying to kill every single one of us. And they were succeeding. The interrogation room felt colder as Zexhi continued his testimony. His forearms were shaking now, and the clear liquid from his eyes was dripping onto the metal table. Admiral Vorthak had stopped reading his files and was just staring at the broken alien. The retreat should have been the end of it. Zexai said in his scratchy voice. We had lost too many ships and too many crew members. Standard military doctrine said we should return to home space and request reinforcements. Dr. Yella leaned forward. But you didn't retreat? No. High Command was furious about our losses. They said the humans had made the Kethmaran Empire look weak in front of the entire galaxy. Admiral Corvith ordered us to return to Earth with everything we had. Jack Stone looked up from his tablet. Everything. 2,000 ships. 10 million soldiers. Weapons that could crack planets in half. We brought the entire Third Fleet and half of the Second Fleet. It was the largest military force the Kethmaran had ever assembled. Through the glass, Lisa watched the alien's body language change. He seemed to shrink into himself like he was trying to disappear. Admiral Corvith had a simple plan. We would surround Earth completely so nothing could escape. Then we would bombard the surface until every human city was dust and ash. A genocide, Admiral Vorthak said quietly. Yes. We were going to kill every human on the planet. It was the only way to make sure they could never threaten anyone again. Zexai was quiet for a moment. Then he made that sound again that might have been bitter laughter. We thought it would take maybe 5 cycles. The humans had already lost most of their fleet in the first battle. They had no way to stop orbital bombardment from 2,000 ships. What went wrong? Dr. Yella asked. Everything. The humans had been preparing for our return. When we came out of hyperspace around Earth, the planet looked different. Jack Stone stopped writing. Different how? Dark. Most of their cities had gone silent. The lights were out and there was no radio traffic. At first we thought they had all died from the damage we caused in the first battle. But they hadn't. No. They had gone underground. Every human on the planet had moved into tunnels and bunkers and hidden places. The surface looked empty, but they were all still there waiting for us. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. She could imagine millions of humans hiding in subway tunnels and basement shelters waiting for the alien attack. Admiral Corvith ordered immediate bombardment of all major population centers. We fired plasma cannons at every city on the planet for 3 full cycles, and nothing. The cities burned, but no humans came out to surrender. No distress signals, no pleas for mercy. Just silence. Zexai stood up and started pacing again. His chains made noise with each step. On the 4th cycle, we began landing troops. 50,000 soldiers in the ruins of what used to be called Chicago. They were supposed to search for survivors and establish a command base. What happened to them? They all died. Every single one. The room went completely silent. Dr. Yella's recording device seemed very loud in the quiet. The humans had turned their destroyed city into a trap. The buildings that looked empty were full of human soldiers. The streets that looked clear had explosives buried underneath them. Our troops were surrounded before they even knew they were under attack. How many humans were involved, we never found out. They moved through the ruins like ghosts. Our soldiers would be patrolling 1 minute and dead the next. No sounds, no warnings. Just death. Jack Stone was writing very fast now. Did you send reinforcements? Admiral Corvith sent another 100,000 troops to Chicago. They found the bodies of the first landing force, but no sign of the humans who killed them. And then, the same thing happened again. The second force lasted maybe 6 hours before they stopped reporting. A human named Colonel Pete Jackson was leading the resistance fighters in Chicago. We never saw him, but we found messages he left for us. Admiral Vorthak's tentacles were changing colors rapidly. What kind of messages? Welcome to Chicago. Population 0. Please enjoy your stay. Things like that. He was mocking us, Dr. Yella made a note. You tried other cities? Yes, Los Angeles, New York, London, Tokyo. Every time it was the same. Our troops would land and then disappear. The humans had turned every ruined building into a fortress and every street into a killing ground. Zexai sat back down heavily. The chains around his arms rattled. After 2 months, we had lost 500,000 soldiers and we hadn't seen more than a handful of live humans. Admiral Corvith was getting desperate. What did he decide to do? Full surface sterilization. He ordered every ship to fire at maximum power until the entire planet was molten rock. Lisa pressed closer to the glass. This was the part she had been waiting to hear about. We fired everything we had. Plasma cannons, fusion missiles, antimatter bombs. For 10 full cycles, we poured destruction onto Earth's surface. The oceans were boiling and the continents were on fire. Surely that worked. Zexai looked at Jack Stone with something that might have been pity. You really don't understand what your species is like, do you? What do you mean? When the bombardment stopped, we sent probe ships to survey the damage. The surface of Earth looked like the inside of a star. Nothing could have survived that level of destruction, but something did. Yes, the humans were still alive, deep underground in shelters they had built while we were landing troops. They had been preparing for exactly this kind of attack. Dr. Yella's ears were flat against her head again. How deep? Miles down in some places. They had moved their entire civilization underground. Factories, farms, command centers. Everything they needed to keep fighting. Admiral Vorthak leaned back in his chair. And they kept resisting worse than that. They started attacking us. The alien's voice was getting higher and more scratchy. Lisa could see that remembering this part was especially difficult for him. A human engineer named Maria Santos had figured out how to modify our own shuttles for underground warfare. They would come up through tunnel systems we didn't know existed and attack our landing forces from below. How effective were these attacks? Devastating. Our soldiers were trained for normal ground combat. Fighting in narrow tunnels against humans who knew every passage and every hiding place was like walking into a meat grinder. Zexhai was shaking badly now. Clear liquid was streaming from his compound eyes. The humans had advantages we couldn't match. They knew their own planet better than we ever could. They were smaller and could move through spaces that our soldiers couldn't fit into, and they were angry. Angry. We had destroyed their cities and killed millions of their people, but instead of making them weaker, it made them stronger. Every human we killed seemed to create 10 more fighters who wanted revenge. Jack Stone looked up from his notes. How long did this continue? 6 months. For 6 months we tried to dig the humans out of their holes. We lost 3 million soldiers in tunnels and sewers and underground bunkers. And the humans, we never knew how many of them we killed. They would drag away their dead and wounded so we couldn't count them. But no matter how many we destroyed, there were always more. Dr. Yella was writing frantically. When did you realize you were losing? When Admiral Korveth himself was killed. A human named Captain Nick Barnes led a team through the ship's waste disposal system and planted explosives in the command center. The Admiral and his entire staff died in the blast. After that, chaos. With no central command, different ship captains started making their own decisions. Some wanted to keep fighting. Others wanted to retreat. Some wanted to destroy the planet completely, even if it killed our own forces. Zexhai looked directly at the one-way glass again, but the humans weren't finished with us yet. They had one more surprise that broke our will to fight completely. Zexhai was breathing very hard now. The sound filled the interrogation room like a broken ventilation system. Admiral Vorthak had gone completely still and Dr. Yella's big black eyes were focused entirely on the shaking alien. Tell us about the surprise. Jack Stone said quietly. The humans stopped hiding. After 6 months of fighting us from underground, they came to the surface and started hunting us. Hunting. Yes. Small teams of human soldiers would attack our landing sites and supply depots. But they weren't trying to destroy our equipment. They were trying to steal it. Zexhai wiped the clear liquid from his eyes with one of his forehands. His claws left small scratches on his chitinous face. A human named Commander Ryan Clark was leading these raids. His teams would hit our positions fast and hard and then disappear with whatever they could carry. Dr. Yella looked up from her recording device. What were they stealing? Everything. Weapons, vehicles, communication equipment, medical supplies. At first we thought they were just desperate for resources, but they weren't. No. They were learning how to use our technology against us. Within weeks, human soldiers were carrying Kethmaran plasma rifles and wearing our armor. Through the glass, Lisa felt a surge of pride. Humans had always been good at adapting and improving whatever tools they could find. Commander Clark had teams of engineers led by a woman named Dr. Helen Foster. They would take apart everything the raiding teams brought back and figure out how it worked. How long did this take? That's what made it so terrifying. Dr. Foster's teams could reverse engineer our most advanced weapons in days instead of years. They would capture one of our plasma cannons, and by the next week they had built 50 improved copies. Admiral Vorthak's tentacles were moving very slowly. Improved. Yes, the human versions were smaller and more efficient than ours. They had somehow made our own technology work better than we could. Jack Stone was writing notes very quickly. What else did they steal? Our ships. Commander Clark's raiders started targeting our parked shuttles and transport vessels. They would kill the crews and fly the ships away to where underground. They had built hidden hangar bays deep beneath the surface. We didn't know about them until it was too late. Zexhai stood up and started pacing again. The sound of his chains was getting louder and more frantic. After 2 months of these raids, we realized the humans had stolen over 300 of our ships. But we still thought they were just trying to survive. We didn't understand what they were really planning, which was to take the war to us. The humans weren't content to just defend their planet anymore. They wanted to destroy our fleet. The alien stopped pacing and looked directly at Jackstone. Do you know what your people did with those stolen ships? Tell us. They modified them. A human engineer named Captain Kate Williams had figured out how to improve our ship designs. She made them faster and gave them better weapons and stronger shields. Dr. Yella's ears perked up. Better than Keth Moran technology, much better. The human modifications made our ships perform at levels we had never achieved. It was like they understood our technology better than we did. Lisa watched as Admiral Vorthak's skin color shifted to a deep gray. She could tell this information was making him very uncomfortable. The first human attack on our fleet came without warning. Zexhai continued. 50 of our own ships appeared out of nowhere and opened fire on our supply convoy. You were attacked by your own vessels. Yes. But they were being flown by humans now. Captain Williams was leading the attack personally. Her modified ships were faster and more maneuverable than anything in our fleet. What happened? The convoy was destroyed in minutes. 12 supply ships and their escorts were turned into scrap metal. But that wasn't the worst part. Jack Stone looked up. What was the humans didn't just destroy our ships. They captured the crews who survived. Over 2,000 Keth Moran prisoners were taken during that one attack. For interrogation, Zexhai made that bitter laughing sound again. We thought so at first. Taking prisoners for information is standard military practice. But the humans had something else in mind. The room went very quiet. Dr. Yella's recording device seemed to be making more noise than before. A week after the convoy attack, we received a transmission from the human underground. It was from a scientist named Dr. Susan Blake. What did she say? She thanked us for the prisoners. Then she said that her research teams had learned some very interesting things about Keth Moran biology. Admiral Vorthak leaned forward. What kind of things? She had figured out how our brains work, how our nervous systems process information, how our bodies respond to different kinds of stress. Zexhai was shaking very badly now. His 4 arms were wrapped around his body like he was trying to hold himself together. Dr. Blake said her teams had developed new weapons specifically designed to work against Keth Moran physiology, sonic frequencies that could paralyze us, chemical compounds that could affect our breathing, electromagnetic pulses that could disrupt our neural networks, biological warfare. Worse than that. The humans had weaponized their understanding of how we think and feel and function as living beings. Dr. Yella was writing frantically. Did they use these weapons? The next human attack targeted our main battle group. 80 ships led by Admiral Thekfor were patrolling near Earth's moon when the humans struck. How many human ships? Only 20. But they were using Dr. Blake's new weapons. The attack lasted less than an hour, and when it was over, 79 of our ships were either destroyed or disabled. Jack Stone stopped writing. 79 out of 80. Yes. Only Admiral Thekfor's flagship survived, and that was because the humans wanted it to survive. They wanted him to carry a message back to the rest of the fleet. What message? That the humans were done playing defense. A pilot named Colonel Mike Torres spoke directly to Admiral Thekfor over the communication system. Zexhai's voice became very quiet. Lisa had to strain to hear him through the glass. Colonel Torres said that the Keth Moran Empire had made a mistake when they decided to exterminate humanity. He said that humans don't forgive and they don't forget. And then he said something that made every Keth Moran in the fleet afraid to sleep at night. What? He said that the humans were coming for us. Not just our ships or our soldiers, but our homeworlds and our families and everything we had ever built. He said they would hunt us across the galaxy until every last Keth Moran was dead. The interrogation room was completely silent now except for the sound of Zexhai's labored breathing. After that message, our fleet started falling apart. Ship captains were abandoning their posts and trying to flee back to home space. Soldiers were refusing orders and demanding to be sent away from Earth. Mass desertion. Yes. But the humans weren't finished with us yet. They had one more demonstration that finally broke our will to fight completely. Admiral Vorthak's tentacles had gone completely still. What demonstration? Zexhai looked around the room at all the faces watching him. When he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. They showed us what human creativity could do when it was focused entirely on causing death and suffering. And they made us understand that everything we had seen so far was just them getting started. The lights in the interrogation room seemed dimmer now. Zexhai was hunched over in his chair with his forearms wrapped around his body. Clear liquid was still dripping from his compound eyes and his breathing sounded like it hurt. Admiral Vorthak looked at his files one more time before speaking. Tell us about the final demonstration. It started when the humans captured one of our communication relay ships. The vessel was called Signal's Edge and it carried our most advanced transmission equipment. Dr. Yella leaned closer. What did they do with it? At first, nothing. The ship just went silent and we assumed the crew was dead. But 3 cycles later, we started receiving transmissions from Signal's Edge. What kind of transmissions? Zexhai was quiet for a very long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was so soft that everyone in the room had to strain to hear him. The humans had taken our crew alive. All 47 Kethmaran officers were being held prisoner on their own ship. But the humans weren't torturing them or demanding military information. What were they doing? Showing them things. A human scientist named Dr. Helen Foster was conducting some kind of experiment using our communication equipment to project images directly into Kethmaran minds. Through the glass, Lisa felt her stomach tighten. She had a feeling she knew where this story was going. Dr. Foster had discovered how to access Kethmaran neural networks through our own technology. She could send thoughts and memories and experiences directly into our brains without our consent. Jack Stone stopped writing. What did she show them? Human history. Every war humans had ever fought. Every weapon they had ever created. Every way they had ever found to kill each other. Admiral Vorthak's skin color shifted to almost black. Why? To teach us what we were really fighting against. The humans wanted us to understand that war wasn't something they had to learn. It was something they were born knowing how to do. Zexhai stood up and began pacing frantically. His chains rattled with each jerky movement. Dr. Foster showed our prisoners images from something humans call World War II. Millions of humans killing each other with weapons that could destroy entire cities. Then she showed them images from their civil war, where humans fought their own families and friends, and she showed them pictures of something called the Holocaust, where humans systematically murdered millions of other humans just because they were different. And images from places called Hiroshima and Nagasaki, where humans used nuclear weapons against their own species. Dr. Yella's big eyes were wide with horror. Against their own species, yes, that's what made it so terrifying. These weren't images of humans fighting aliens or monsters. These were humans fighting other humans, and they were very good at it. The alien sat back down and put his head in his hands, but Dr. Foster wasn't finished. She showed our prisoners human movies and books and games about war. Things they created for entertainment that were more brutal and creative than anything in real Kethmoran military history. Entertainment. Yes. Humans make art about violence. They tell stories about killing and dying and they enjoy it. They have words for different kinds of warfare that we don't even have concepts for. Zexhai looked up at Jack Stone. Did you know that your species has over 50 different words just for different ways to kill someone with a blade? Jack Stone didn't answer, but Lisa could see him thinking about it. Dr. Foster's final lesson was the most frightening of all. Zexhai continued. She showed our prisoners what humans call their military history. Not their wars, but their evolution as warriors. Evolution, how they went from throwing rocks and sticks to building weapons that could destroy planets. How they developed tactics and strategies that turned killing into a science. And your crew saw all of this? Yes. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what Dr. Foster told them afterward. Admiral Vorthak leaned forward. What did she say? She explained that everything we had seen during our invasion of Earth was humans holding back. They had been trying to minimize casualties and protect their own civilians. The room went completely silent. Even Dr. Yella's recording device seemed to stop making noise. Dr. Foster said that if humans really wanted to destroy the Kethmaran Empire, they would stop trying to be merciful. She said they would show us what human warfare looked like when they weren't worried about being nice. She was threatening you. No, she was promising us. Dr. Foster said that humans had spent thousands of years learning how to kill efficiently and creatively, and they were very proud of their skills. Zexhai was shaking uncontrollably now. Lisa could see that remembering this was causing him real pain. Then she showed our prisoners something that made even the bravest Kethmaran officers beg for mercy. What she showed them: human children playing war games. Young humans practicing combat and laughing while they pretended to kill each other. She said that humans started learning about warfare before they could even speak properly. Dr. Yella made a choking sound. Children. Yes. Dr. Foster explained that human children played with toy weapons and pretended to be soldiers and thought that fighting was fun. She said that by the time humans became adults, they had already spent their entire lives thinking about combat. Jack Stone was very pale now. What happened to your crew? They were returned to us 3 cycles later. All 47 officers were physically unharmed but mentally broken. Most of them couldn't speak. The ones who could talk just kept repeating the same words over and over. What words? They're not like us. They're not like us. They're not like us. Admiral Vorthak's tentacles had gone completely limp. And that's when your fleet retreated. No. That's when we realized we had never been fighting a war at all. We had been fighting human beings who were treating our invasion like a training exercise. Zexhai looked around the room one final time. The humans sent one last message to our fleet before we fled Earth's system. It came from General Jake Morrison, the same human who had first told us to come and take it. What did he say? He thanked us. He said that fighting the Kethmoran Empire had been educational and entertaining. He said it had given his people a chance to test some new weapons and tactics they had been developing. And then he said that if we ever came back to human space, they would show us what they were really capable of when they stopped playing games. The interrogation room was quiet for a long moment. Then Admiral Vorthak spoke in a voice that was barely audible. How many ships made it back to Kethmor in space? 12. Out of 2,000 ships and 10 million soldiers, only 12 vessels survived to bring word of our defeat. Dr. Yella looked at her notes. And the human casualties we never found out. The humans never told us how many of their people died fighting us, but I think that was part of the lesson too. What do you mean? I think they wanted us to understand that human casualties didn't matter to them, that they were willing to pay any price to win a fight, that they saw death as just another tool to use against their enemies. Zexhai slumped in his chair, looking completely exhausted. After we returned home, the Kethmoran High Command issued new standing orders regarding human space. No Kethmoran ship is allowed within 50 light-years of Earth. No Kethmoran citizen is allowed to make contact with humans for any reason. Admiral Vorthak was writing notes now. Because they're too dangerous. Because they're not really a species at all. They're a weapon that learned how to think and feel and build civilization, while never forgetting how to kill. Through the glass, Lisa watched as the alien looked directly at her location one final time. The humans didn't just defeat the Kethmoran Empire. They taught us that there are things in the universe that should never be disturbed, things that are so dangerous that even looking at them wrong can get you destroyed. And humans are one of those things. Humans are the most dangerous thing the galaxy has ever created. And the worst part is that they don't even know it. They think they're normal. Zexhai's voice became very quiet, but they're not normal. They're monsters who learned how to love and laugh and build beautiful things, while keeping all their monstrous abilities intact. And now they're out there in the galaxy, doing whatever they want. The alien looked at Jack Stone one last time. Your people asked me to tell this story, so the Galactic Council would understand what happened at Earth. But I think the real lesson is simpler than that, which is never fight humans, because even if you win, you'll lose everything that makes you who you are, and if you lose, you'll discover that there are worse things than death. The interrogation was over. Admiral Vorthak closed his files and Dr. Yella turned off her recording device. Through the glass, Lisa watched as guards came to take Zexhai back to his cell. And the broken alien was led away. She heard him speaking quietly to himself in his own language. Jack Stone translated for her later. He was saying, "They're coming. They're coming. They're coming," over and over again, like a prayer or a warning or maybe both.